2 of Giants Talk with Brad Moylan. Thank you so much for joining me. Today we're going to get into the Giants bullpen in part 1 of a 2-part episode analyzing the Giants bullpen this year with all the young guys that came up. There were quite a few guys to analyze, so we're going to break this down into 2 parts. If you missed episode 1, make sure to go check it out as I analyze the Giants starting pitching in 2019 and how that group looks going forward. So let's get right into it and start off with Andrew Suarez. So Suarez is a guy similar to Sean Anderson, as I discussed in the last episode, that could fall under the starter or bullpen category. Suarez did most of his work out of the bullpen this year, which is the reason that I'm including him in this bucket of the analysis. Suarez was 0-2 with a 5.79 earned run average this year, striking out 25 in 32 2/3 innings pitched. A few more numbers on Suarez. As a starter, he only threw 10 innings, but he had a 9.00 earned run average. As a reliever, he threw 22 2/3 innings with a 4.37 earned run average. A couple more things to break down, and then I will get into what all these numbers mean. Against left-handed hitters this year, Suarez was excellent. In 13 1/3 innings pitched, he had a 2.03 earned run average and struck out nearly a batter per inning. Against right-handed hitters, Suarez struggled a little bit. In 19 1/3 innings pitched, he had an 8.38 earned run average. So what do all these numbers mean? In 2020, the Giants will look to put Suarez in a role where he faces predominantly left-handed hitters, and I believe that role for Suarez is in the bullpen. He will likely battle for a lefty specialist or long reliever role this spring, and which of those 2 roles he ends up in could certainly be determined by whether Tony Watson or Will Smith return to the Giants this offseason. We'll get to that in a little while. Another reason to keep Suarez in the bullpen is that his velocity ticked up when he made the move from starters to the bullpen. His fastball sat around 93-94 in the pen compared to 91-92 as a starter. Also, he works very quickly and has an excellent ground ball rate, which is a key stat for relievers, as many come into late inning jams and have to get out of it quickly looking to induce a ground ball. Suarez's ground ball rate this year was 49.1%, which is above the major league average, which sits between 43 and 45%. Look for Suarez to battle for a bullpen role this spring, but he also might make a few starts in 2020 against teams with left-handed hitting lineups. Staying with the lefty reliever theme, how about Will Smith? Will Smith was 6-0 with a 2.76 earned run average and 96 strikeouts in 65 1/3 innings pitched in 2019. He also boasted a 1,000 batting average with his 2-run single down the right field line against the Phillies in a game in early August. That was certainly one of the more memorable Giants moments of the year. It was a dominant year on the mound for Smith, and he is one of the 3 finalists for the National League Reliever of the Year, which shows just how great of a year he had. Smith has one of the nastiest sliders in the league and will be one of the most sought-after free agent relievers on the market this winter, although the Giants do have a say in Smith's plans for 2020. They have the option to place a qualifying offer on Smith, which is a 1-year contract worth $17.8 million, which would be a major pay raise over the $4.22 million that Smith made in 2020. That may just be enough for him to accept the qualifying offer, but he also may want the security of a long-term deal, which I would imagine the Giants would be unlikely to offer due to the plethora of bullpen arms that made themselves attractive options for 2020. We'll just have to wait and see what happens with Will Smith this offseason, and whether the Giants place a qualifying offer on him or not will be one of the major headlines in what is sure to be a busy offseason for the Giants. The man who spent much of the 2019 season holding leads and setting up save opportunities for Will Smith, Tony Watson, his contract status with the Giants is also up in the air for 2020. The veteran left-hander was 2-2 with a 4.17 earned run average, striking out 41 batters in 54 innings pitched in 2019. But a concerning stat was his fielding independent pitching. It sat at 4.81. Fielding independent pitching is a stat that consists of a pitcher's three true outcomes: strikeouts, walks, and home runs. The fact that Watson's FIP was above his ERA indicates that he got somewhat lucky in 2019, which is a concerning trend going forward. Overall, Watson remained a solid late-inning bullpen arm for the Giants in 2019, but certainly regressed a bit from his 2018 season, which saw him post a 2.59 earned run average and strike out more than a batter per inning. Watson has a $2.5 million player option for 2020 with a $500,000 buyout. The Giants have quite a bit of uncertainty among their left-handed bullpen arms, with both Smith and Watson's status up in the air for 2020, and given the fact that many of their young promising bullpen arms are right-handers. Watson's decision is due 3 days after the end of the World Series, so we should know very shortly whether Watson will be suiting up in a Giants uniform in 2020. Given Watson's age, 35, and how slowly the free agent market has moved over the past couple of years in terms of how long it takes players to sign, and the fact that many players are signing for what they believe to be below their value, I believe that Watson will take his player option and stay with the Giants in 2020. How about a great story from the 2019 season? Let's talk a little bit about Trevor Gott. Gott was 7-0 with a 4.44 earned run average, striking out 57 hitters in 52 2/3 innings pitched. But the line doesn't truly reflect how great of a year he had in 2019. His whip was 1.10, and his fielding independent pitching was 3.52, which are much more accurate representations of how great of a year he had in 2019. His year has even more value given the fact that he was acquired for just cash from the Washington Nationals in a spring training deal that flew under the radar for the most part until Gott gained traction with the Giants and really started turning heads in 2019. Gott threw a lot fewer sinkers and a lot more fastballs this season, which was thought to be a major reason for his success. He had a lot of success with his fastball up in the zone, which personally is one of my favorite pitches that pitchers can throw. There is so little margin for error with breaking balls, as missing by just a couple inches can be the difference between a harmless ground ball and a ball that goes over the fence. Also, spotting fastballs in the inside or outside corner, same situation. If that pitch leaks over the plate, it can be a difference between weak contact and a hard hit ball. But throwing a fastball above the zone, to me, has a much larger margin for error, although it's still not big. If a pitcher tries to throw a fastball a few inches above the strike zone and misses a couple inches below, that ball still ends up on the top of the strike zone, which is a very difficult pitch for hitters to square up. Guys have a hard time driving the ball when it's that high up in the zone, and even if they do make contact, it usually results in a harmless fly ball. Many pitches that are swung at up in the zone are swung right through because hitters see the pitch coming in as one that looks very appetizing to swing at, and by the time they start swinging, it's by them. I really admire Gott's ability to attack hitters throwing up in the zone in the 2019 season, and I'm thinking that seeing Gott's success, many of the Giants pitchers will do a lot more throwing up in the zone, and I think that could lead to great success for this Giants team in 2019. Gott's last appearance of the season came on August 26th. In an appearance, he was removed from the game after feeling some discomfort in his elbow. Further examinations revealed a UCL sprain and flexor strain in his right elbow, which caused him to be out for the rest of the season. Gott also had groin surgery this offseason, and it was a groin injury that he dealt with for most of the year, according to the website RotoWire. The good news is that Gott should be all good to go for 2020 spring training and should have a very important role in this Giants bullpen. He will likely pitch in a lot of late inning situations with both Sam Dyson and Mark Melancon wearing different uniforms, Reyes Maranta injured, and Will Smith and Tony Watson's status up in the air for 2020. Trevor Gott is under team control for the foreseeable future, so Giants fans should certainly get used to a lot more fastballs up in the zone for the years to come. Speaking of the injured Reyes Maranta, he had an excellent year in 2019 before going down with a torn labrum. Maranta was 3-7 with a 2.86 earned run average, striking out 70 hitters in 56 2/3 innings pitched. Maranta had surgery on his torn labrum in mid-September and isn't expected to return until August of next season. Many people see Maranta as the future Giants closer, but he likely won't get that opportunity next season due to the fact that he's returning so late in the year. Assuming he returns healthy, although torn labrums are very difficult injuries for pitchers to overcome, Maranta should be a leading closer candidate going into the 2021 season. I will certainly be watching Maranta very closely once he returns, taking a close look at his stuff and how healthy he looks on the mound, as that will be very important to the Giants' success, possibly in 2020, but certainly in the years to come. In the meantime, the Giants have a guy who could step in very admirably for Reyes Maranta, although they do things very differently on the mound, and that is the submarining right-hander, Tyler Rogers. Rogers was 2-0 with a sparkling 1.02 earned run average, striking out 8.15 hitters per 9 innings. Needless to say, he made an excellent impression as a late-season call-up for the Giants. His ground ball rate was phenomenal, sitting at 69.3%, which is way above the Major League average of 43 to 45%. Another very impressive thing about Rogers is that when he did give up hits, they were hit very softly. Several of the hits Rogers gave up were ground balls against the shift, ground balls that found holes, or just little bloops over the infield. Rogers excelled against right-handed hitters, but also did very well against lefties, which was very surprising to some. Righties hit 209 off of Rogers, while lefties hit a whopping 136, which is just phenomenal from Rogers' point of view. Rogers' sinker sits around 82 miles an hour, while his slider, which acts like a curveball, is usually around 73. This is a major change of pace for hitters who face guys on a nightly basis that are throwing 98, 99, or even touching 100 miles an hour. It'll be very interesting what type of adjustments hitters make to Rogers for this upcoming 2020 season, but that being said, it still is so difficult to time up a guy who is throwing 10 miles an hour less on average than most big league pitchers. Also, Rogers' curveball, which rises in the strike zone, is a pitch that very few guys have seen at all in their major league careers, and it's a very difficult pitch to hit. So I would imagine that Rogers could certainly continue his success in the 2020 season. What will his role be in 2020? Well, I would imagine he would be a righty specialist or a long reliever, but he certainly could pitch late in games due to the fact that he had so much success in that role this past season. I'm very much looking forward to seeing whether Rogers can continue his great story of sparkling success at the big league level after spending 7 years in the minor leagues, including 4 years with the AAA Sacramento River Cats. That'll do it for part 1 of this series on the Giants bullpen. Make sure you tune in to part 2 coming out in a day or so, where I will discuss several more Giants bullpen pitchers, including Yandel Gustave and Sam Coonrod, who made great strides in 2019, and is Kyle Bearclaw, the former dominant Marlins closer, in the Giants' plans for 2020. All that and more coming up in part 2 of this series of Giants Talk with Brad Moylan. Thank you very much for watching.